You announce strength to feel powerful. Predators notice. Real winners amputate applause, operate unseen, and take territory while loud men beg for recognition. Silence as a weapon. You were trained to believe silence is submission, that if you're not seen, you don't exist. That power needs witnesses. This belief was installed deliberately by institutions, by weaker men, by systems that profit from your exposure. Power does not announce itself, it moves. Silence is not absence, it is compression. In war, the loudest unit is the one already dead. The quiet force is still advancing. Visibility attracts attention. Attention attracts resistance. Every time you speak prematurely, posture publicly, or signal ambition, you trigger countermeasures you cannot see. You are no longer a player. You are a target. Sir, the first lens shift is brutal. Competition is not about proving strength. It is about denying others information. Men compete loudly because noise gives the illusion of control. It feels like dominance to be acknowledged. But acknowledgement is not leverage. It is exposure. Applause does not move outcomes. Positioning does. While you are busy being perceived, someone quieter is rearranging the board. Silence creates asymmetry. When no one knows your intent, they cannot block it. When no one knows your capacity, they underestimate it. When no one knows your movement, they cannot intercept it. The unseen man enjoys freedom of maneuver. The visible man is fenced in by expectations, envy, and surveillance. Predators understand this instinctively. They do not roar before striking. They lower their profile, slow their breath, narrow their presence. Noise is for intimidation after dominance is secured, not before. Humans inverted this rule because ego replaced survival. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Most men speak because they are afraid of being irrelevant. Silence forces you to confront whether your power is real without witnesses. That terror pushes men to announce progress, broadcast struggle, and narrate ambition. They are asking for permission to matter. Power never asks. Silence also functions as a filter. Weak men cannot tolerate it. They fill space compulsively, explaining, justifying, signaling virtue or struggle. Strong operators grow comfortable in informational darkness. They understand that every word is a leak. Every reveal is a concession. This is not about becoming mute. It is about becoming selective. Silence is strategic withholding. You speak only when it alters the environment in your favor. You act without commentary. You allow others to misread you. Misinterpretation is not a threat. It is camouflage. The loud man believes visibility protects him. In reality, it chains him to a role. Once labeled, he must perform consistently or be punished. The silent man avoids labels. He stays fluid. He can pivot without explanation, withdraw without embarrassment, strike without warning. Notice who survives in hostile environments. Not the most vocal, not the most moral. The one who conserves energy, conceals direction, and reveals strength only when extraction is guaranteed. Silence shifts power vertically. It moves you above the emotional marketplace where men barter validation. From above, you see patterns. You see who needs attention, who overcommits, who reacts. Their noise becomes data. Your silence becomes dominance. This chapter does not ask you to be mysterious for effect. That is still performance. It demands you amputate the need to be seen, to operate without spectators, to accept that real victories feel anticlimactic because no one claps. Silence is a weapon because it denies the enemy their favorite resource, you. When you disappear from the noise, you reclaim sovereignty. You stop feeding rivals information. You stop inviting friction. You move from the arena into the command room. And from there, outcomes change quietly, permanently. The psychology of loud failure. Men do not compete loudly because it works. They do it because silence exposes something they cannot tolerate. Uncertainty about their own value. Noise is anesthesia. It numbs doubt. It replaces competence with performance. Loudness is not confidence, it is leakage. At the psychological level, public competition satisfies three weak drives: validation hunger, fear displacement, and ego insurance. Each one corrodes strategic thinking. Each one turns the man into a signal instead of a force. Validation hunger comes first. When a man is unsure of his trajectory, he seeks witnesses. He posts progress, announces goals, narrates struggle, not to inform, but to be reassured. The applause becomes proof of existence. The problem is simple. Once your motivation depends on reaction, control shifts outward. You are now reactive. Your direction bends toward what is rewarded, not what is effective. Fear displacement follows. Loud men talk because action without recognition terrifies them. Silence forces commitment without guarantee. And speaking creates the illusion of movement while avoiding real risk. A man can talk about building, conquering, changing, without ever placing himself in a position where results judge him. Noise delays exposure. Then comes ego insurance. Public declarations lock others into expectation. If the attempt fails, the loud man reframes the loss. Excuses, moral victories, narratives. He did not lose, he learned. Silence removes that safety net. Quiet failure is honest. Loud failure is theater. Here is the mechanism most men miss. Noise attracts interference. When you announce direction, you invite comparison. Comparison invites competition. Competition invites sabotage, overt or subtle. Envy does not need malice. It only needs proximity. Loud men generate it constantly. Quiet men starve it. The human brain is wired to challenge visible hierarchies. The man who displays assent triggers unconscious resistance from peers, institutions, even allies. They smile while adjusting obstacles. The loud competitor interprets this as haters. The strategist understands it as physics. Silence avoids friction by never becoming a reference point. There is also a cognitive tax. Performing drains attention. Managing perception consumes bandwidth that should be spent on execution. The loud man splits focus between outcome and audience. The quiet man concentrates power in one direction. Observe markets, politics, even street hierarchies. The most talked about players burn out fastest. Their exposure accelerates opposition. Meanwhile, unknown operators accumulate position slowly, then surface only when displacement is inevitable. The loudness also hardens identity too early. Once a man declares what he is becoming, he limits what he can adapt into. Pride freezes movement. Silence keeps identity provisional. You are not what you say. You are what survives. The deepest flaw of loud competition is this. It confuses attention with advantage. Attention is neutral, often hostile. It shines light, and light attracts predators as much as allies. Advantage is asymmetry, having what others do not know, cannot predict, or cannot stop. Men fail loudly because failure was baked into the method. They traded secrecy for comfort. They chose applause over leverage. They mistook visibility for velocity. The quiet path feels slower because it denies immediate dopamine. No likes, no affirmation, no narrative. Just progress measured privately, in territory gained, options expanded, our exits secured. This chapter strips the romance from noise. It forces you to see loudness as a tell, an emotional leak that signals where pressure will break you. Once you understand this, silence stops feeling empty. It starts feeling armed. The quiet operator archetype. Every hierarchy contains two types of men, performers and operators. Performers need an audience. Operators need outcomes. One is selected for visibility. The other is selected for survival. The quiet operator does not look impressive early. That is the point. He avoids the spotlight not out of fear, but out of calculation. He understands that attention is a tax paid by those who cannot yet defend their position. Until power is irreversible, exposure is liability. So he remains underestimated by choice. The first trait of the quiet operator is informational discipline. He does not explain. He does not announce. He does not correct misperceptions unless correction benefits him. Being misunderstood is not an insult, it is strategic cover. While others react to how they are seen, he moves based on how things are. Second is delayed gratification without resentment. Loud men crave immediate proof of progress because they need emotional return. The operator delays reward calmly. He measures time in compounding advantage, not applause cycles. This makes him invisible in cultures addicted to speed and noise. Third is asymmetrical engagement. The operator never fights on equal terms. He chooses arenas where others are absent, distracted, or disqualified by ego. While performers compete head-to-head, the operator builds leverage off to the side, networks, skills, capital, positioning, until confrontation is unnecessary. Notice how selection works. In organizations, the most vocal contributors are promoted into visibility and then neutralized by bureaucracy and expectation. The quiet operator stays adjacent, learning the system without becoming trapped by it. When he moves, it appears sudden. It wasn't. You just weren't watching. There is also emotional economy. Operators speak less because they feel less need to manage how others feel about them. Approval is not a resource they trade in. This emotional detachment allows them to observe patterns without distortion. Who panics, who postures, who leaks intent. Performers confuse morality with strategy. Operators separate them cleanly. They do not announce virtue. They do not signal loyalty prematurely. Loyalty is leverage once proven, not a public identity. Loud loyalty is often compensation for weakness. The operator's silence creates psychological pressure in others. Humans project onto blanks. When you do not explain yourself, others fill the gap with underestimation, suspicion, or curiosity. All three are useful. None require effort. Critically, the quiet operator is not passive. He is patient. He acts decisively when windows open, then disappears again. His presence is intermittent, which makes his moves harder to track and harder to counter. This archetype thrives because systems reward those who avoid early detection. History favors men who let others exhaust themselves in visible struggle, while they consolidate quietly. By the time the operator is noticed, resistance is symbolic. This chapter installs a new reference model in your mind. Not the loud winner, not the charismatic leader, but the man whose name appears on documents after decisions are already irreversible. Once you see this archetype, you cannot unsee the pattern. And once you recognize it, you face a choice. Perform and be consumed, or operate and remain sovereign. History punishes the visible. History is not kind to men who announce themselves early. It uses them as warnings. Visibility accelerates correction. Silence delays it until the outcome is already decided. Every competitive environment, war, court, market, tribe, follows the same rule. The most visible contender attracts the first strike. In warfare, banners draw arrows. Commanders learned quickly that obvious leadership invites assassination. The generals who survived wore no distinction until victory was secured. Those who displayed rank early satisfied ego and paid with blood. In royal courts, the outspoken favorite became the first casualty of intrigue. Visibility creates envy, and envy organizes quietly. The man who boasts allies invites conspirators. The man who withholds intent forces opponents to guess, and guessing wastes energy. Markets punish noise even faster. Companies that overhype attract regulation, lawsuits, and imitation. Quiet firms acquire, position, and consolidate before the public understands what changed. When awareness arrives, options are gone. The loud entrepreneur becomes a case study. The quiet one becomes infrastructure. This is not coincidence. It is selection pressure. Human nature reacts aggressively to perceived ascent. When others believe you are rising, they test you. When they know you are rising, they attempt to stop you. Silence keeps your trajectory ambiguous, long enough to pass critical thresholds. History also exposes another danger of loud competition: premature opposition. When you reveal ambition before you have insulation, resources, alliances, redundancy, you invite resistance while still fragile. Most men do not lose because their strategy was flawed. They lose because they were intercepted too early. Revolutions fail this way. Leaders speak before they can secure supply lines. The state listens quietly and dismantles them surgically. The successful revolutions are quieter, slower, and more decentralized until collapse is inevitable. Even betrayal follows this pattern. The loud man assumes loyalty because he hears agreement. The quiet man verifies through behavior. History is filled with men who were applauded right up until they were removed. Noise does not protect you from knives. It guides them. Consider how institutions neutralize threats. They do not attack the unknown. They attack the visible. Paper trails, reputations, narratives, these are tools of containment. Silence leaves fewer handles to grab. This chapter deepens the threat deliberately. It removes the fantasy that you can be loud and survive through talent alone. Talent attracts challengers. Visibility attracts regulators. Moral posturing attracts exposure. Only insulation protects, and insulation is built quietly. The men who inherit outcomes are rarely remembered for their noise. They are remembered for results, often attributed after the fact. While others fought publicly for credit, they positioned privately for control. History is a ledger, not a stage. It records what endured, not who shouted. If you remain visible while building, you volunteer to be tested before you are ready. If you remain silent, you choose the timing of conflict or avoid it entirely. This is the cost of ignoring history. It does not repeat loudly. It eliminates quietly. Strategic withdrawal from the arena. Once you understand that visibility invites attack, the logical response is not retreat. It is relocation. You do not stop competing. You change arenas. Loud men fight where attention is highest. Strategists move where oversight is weakest. Withdrawal is not weakness. It is reallocation. The first shift is informational fasting. You stop feeding the environment unnecessary data. No progress updates. No goal declarations. No moral signaling. What you are building, learning, or acquiring becomes need to know, and most people do not need to know. This immediately alters power dynamics. Those accustomed to tracking you lose orientation. They misjudge your speed and capacity. Silence collapses their predictive models. Confusion buys you time. Time compounds. Next is selective invisibility. You reduce presence in spaces optimized for performance rather than outcome. Public debates, social platforms, status games. These arenas reward reaction, not control. You exit without announcement. No explanation. Absence itself becomes a signal that something shifted. Then comes shadow positioning. While others compete openly, you build adjacent assets. Skills that travel, capital that compounds, relationships that are private and reciprocal. None of this requires visibility. All of it increases optionality. Optionality is power because it allows exit, leverage, and timing. Strategic withdrawal also means emotional non-participation. Loud arenas are fueled by provocation. They pull men into defending identity, reputation, ego. The strategist refuses to defend what does not matter. Silence starves the fire. You do not win arguments, you win positioning. There is a discipline required here. Silence will trigger suspicion, projection, even hostility. Some will interpret your withdrawal as weakness. Let them. Underestimation is the cheapest camouflage available. Correcting perception is unnecessary until it becomes profitable. Crucially, you must replace noise with private metrics. Loud men outsource measurement to applause. Quiet men measure territory gained, dependencies created, exits secured. Progress becomes real, not performative. The strategic withdrawal also means choosing when to reappear. You do not remain invisible forever. You surface when resistance is futile, when decisions are locked, Resources are committed, paths are narrowed. At that point, visibility no longer attracts attack. It announces conclusion. This chapter installs behavior, not philosophy. It demands that you stop confusing motion with advancement. Most men exhaust themselves in public struggle. The strategist conserves energy, then deploys it where it cannot be contested. Silence here is not aesthetic. It is operational security. By withdrawing from the arena, you stop being a contender in someone else's game. You become a variable they failed to account for. And variables decide outcomes. Kill the performer, install the strategist. You cannot compete quietly while keeping a loud identity alive. One will sabotage the other. This chapter is not about improvement. It is about execution of an identity that no longer serves survival. The performer must die. The performer is the version of you trained to be seen. He wants recognition, fairness, acknowledgement of effort. He believes being understood is protection. He confuses expression with agency. As long as he exists, silence will feel like starvation. That discomfort is the signal. Identity death begins when you accept a ruthless truth. No one is coming to reward you for restraint. Quiet power offers no emotional compensation. There is no applause for not speaking, no validation for not reacting, no praise for winning without witnesses. If you require any of that, you will relapse into noise. The strategist replaces the performer by adopting a different internal economy. The strategist does not ask, "How am I perceived?" He asks, "What leverage did I gain today?" His self-respect comes from position, not reaction. This shifts behavior immediately. He stops narrating, he stops defending, he stops proving. He also stops moralizing weakness. The performer hides behind virtue, honesty, transparency, loyalty, because they excuse exposure. The strategist understands that morality without insulation is self-harm. He practices discretion first, ethics second, and disclosure last. Not because he is evil, but because he is not suicidal. Identity replacement requires emotional discipline. You must tolerate being underestimated without correcting it. You must tolerate silence without filling it. You must tolerate others taking credit without contesting it, because credit is cheaper than control. But this is where most men fail. They want quiet power, but loud recognition. You cannot have both. The strategist also abandons the need for narrative. Performers live inside stories, struggle, redemption, injustice. Strategists live inside structures. They care about flows, incentives, constraints. Emotion becomes data, not directive. Once this identity is installed, behavior aligns naturally. You speak less because you need less. You reveal less because you own more. You wait longer because time now works for you, not against you. The final shift is brutal but necessary. You stop identifying with effort. Only outcomes count. Effort unseen is still effort. Progress unacknowledged is still progress. The world does not reward intention, it selects results. This chapter closes the psychological loop. Silence is no longer a tactic you force. It becomes a byproduct of who you are now. The performer would starve here. The strategist finally breathes. You are no longer trying to win loudly. You are positioning so that winning is inevitable and quiet. Final warning to the exposed. This is where the line is drawn, not between good and bad, between the visible and the sovereign. If you continue to compete loudly, you are not brave, you are exposed. You are volunteering your intent, your timing, your psychology to anyone paying attention. And someone is always paying attention. Silence is rare. Predators notice rarity. The world does not punish noise immediately. It lets you climb just high enough to fall publicly. This delay is what confuses men. They mistake early tolerance for acceptance. It is not. It is calibration. Systems watch, measure, and wait for overextension. Then correction is applied cleanly. Understand the final rule. Attention flows upward, pressure flows downward. The more visible you become, the more force is applied to test, contain, or remove you. Only those with insulation survive this phase. Most do not have it. This is your warning. If you announce while building, you will be intercepted. If you posture while fragile, you will be corrected. If you seek applause while climbing, you will be harvested for entertainment or example. Quiet men are harder to punish because they are harder to locate. There is no redemption arc here, no second chances. Visibility is cumulative. Every reveal adds another handle. Eventually, someone grabs one. Silence removes handles. It leaves nothing to pull. The elite do not need you to agree. They only need you to choose. Remain loud and legible, or disappear and restructure your life around leverage instead of approval. This is not a call to action for the masses. It is a filter. Most will ignore it because silence offers no dopamine. A few will recognize that anonymity is freedom, and freedom is power. If you are still speaking when you could be moving, you have already chosen. If you are still visible when you could be insulated, you will be selected by forces that do not announce themselves either. The game does not end loudly. It ends decisively.